Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Books and Bytes. Today
Uh,
we're diving deep into a book.
hmm,
It's not just a classic. It's considered by many to be the world's first novel,
hmm,
The Tale of Genji,
hmm.
written by Lady Murasaki Shikibu
Wow.
in 11th century Japan. This story takes us right into the heart of the Heian court. Think elegance, poetry, and a whole lot of
Man.
complicated relationships.
It's fascinating, because even though it was written centuries ago, the Tale of Genji still speaks to us today. It explores universal themes like love loss, beauty,
Mhm.
social ambition, and what it really means to be happy. Lady Murasaki doesn't shy away from the darker side of human nature either, like
Right.
jealousy, manipulation, and the fleeting nature of desire.
Okay, so let's set the scene.
Yeah.
The story follows the life of Genji,
Okay.
the son of an emperor. He's handsome, charming, and talented, but his life is anything but simple. We follow him from his childhood, all the way to middle age, witnessing his many love affairs, his triumphs, and his failures.
And through Genji's journey, we get this incredible glimpse into Heian court life. We see the rituals, the poetry, the art, the power dynamics, and the strict social hierarchy that shaped people's lives.
It's like stepping into a time capsule, right?
Mhm.
But with emotions and desires that are still so relatable even now. So where do we begin with this epic tale?
Well, Genji's story starts with his birth. He's the son of the emperor, but his mother is a low-ranking concubine. This immediately sets him apart. He's loved by the emperor, but he faces jealousy from other courtiers.
It's a classic setup for drama, right? And to make matters even more complicated, his mother tragically dies when he's very young.
Exactly. This loss deeply affects Genji. You could argue that his lifelong search for love and connection stems from this early trauma. He's always seeking a love that can replace what he lost.
That's a great point. And speaking of seeking love, Genji's first marriage is arranged, more for political reasons than anything else.
Mm.
He marries Lady Aoi, the daughter of a high-ranking minister. But there's no real passion there.
And this lack of genuine connection leads Genji into a series of love affairs. We see him fall for women from different social backgrounds, each with their own unique qualities and complexities. One of his early infatuations is with Lady Fujitsugo, his father's new consort.
Wait, his father's consort? That's a pretty scandalous situation.
It is, and what makes it even more interesting is that Lady Fujitsubo resembles Genji's deceased mother. This suggests that he's drawn to her, not just for her beauty, but also because she subconsciously represents the love he lost.
So even in his earliest romances, we see these patterns emerging, a yearning for a lost ideal, a disregard for social boundaries, and a tendency to seek fulfillment outside of conventional relationships.
Absolutely. And these patterns continue as Genji encounters other women. There's Utsusemi, a woman he meets at a friend's house. Their encounter is brief and passionate, but ultimately she vanishes from his life. Much like the dew that gives her name its meaning.
Speaking of memorable encounters, there's that famous scene on a rainy night, right? Where Genji is filled with longing for Tsusemi, and the sound of the rain emphasizes the melancholy mood. It's like Lady Murasaki is using nature to reflect the emotions of the characters.
You're right, that's one of the most evocative passages in the book. It captures the fleeting nature of beauty and the bittersweet feeling of a love that cannot be. And this sense of yearning pervades many of Genji's relationships.
So it's not just about romantic conquests, right? There's a deeper emotional layer to these encounters.
Exactly. Genji is constantly seeking something more, something that will bring him lasting happiness. But he often finds himself caught in a cycle of desire and disappointment. And this cycle leads him to another tragic love affair, this time with a woman named Yugo.
Yugo, the woman of humble origins. Tell me more about her story.
Yugo becomes Genji's secret lover. Their relationship is passionate, but it's marked by secrecy and danger because of the difference in their social standing. Tragically, she dies under mysterious circumstances, possibly due to the jealous rage of another of Genji's lovers, Lady Rokujo.
Wait, jealous rage. So there are supernatural elements in the story, too.
Yes. The Tale of Genji blends realism with supernatural elements. It's never explicitly stated whether Yugao's death is caused by a vengeful spirit, or if it's a metaphor for the destructive power of jealousy.
That ambiguity adds a whole other layer to the story. I mean, it makes you question what's real and what's imagined, both within the world of the story and in the minds of the characters.
Precisely. And Lady Rokujo herself is a fascinating character. She's a high-ranking widow, powerful and intelligent, but also deeply possessive of Genji. Their relationship is intense and passionate, but it's also poisoned by her jealousy and the societal constraints that prevent them from being together openly.
So even though Genji seems to have it all, good looks, charm, status, his life is full of these obstacles, both internal and external. that prevent him from finding true happiness.
Exactly. And it's through these obstacles, these challenges, that we really get to see his character unfold. We see his flaws, his vulnerabilities, and his capacity for both great love and great selfishness.
And all of this is happening against the backdrop of this incredibly rich and detailed world. You mentioned poetry earlier. It seems like poetry played a huge role in Heian court life.
It did. Poetry was more than just a form of entertainment. It was a way for people to express their emotions, to communicate subtly, and to demonstrate their refinement and intelligence. We see characters composing poems for all sorts of occasions, to declare love, to express sorrow, even to comment on the beauty of nature.
So it's like poetry is woven into the fabric of their lives. And speaking of beauty, there's another important woman who enters Genji's life early on, Murasaki.
Yes, Murasaki. She's a young girl when Genji first encounters her, and she bears a striking resemblance to his deceased mother. This connection immediately draws him to her, and he decides to take her under his wing.
It sounds like he's trying to recapture a lost love. But with Murasaki, it seems like there's more to it than just physical resemblance.
You're right. Genji becomes invested in her education and upbringing. He sees her potential, her intelligence, and he's determined to shape her into the ideal Heian woman, but their relationship is complicated from the start.
Because she's so young, there's a definite power imbalance there.
Yes, and that's something Lady Murasaki explores throughout the story. As Murasaki grows older, their relationship evolves. There's a genuine affection between them, but also a sense that Genji's controlling her destiny, shaping her to fit his own desires.
It's a reminder that even in love, there can be power dynamics at play, especially in a society as hierarchical as Heian Japan. And I'm guessing this power dynamic will only become more complex as Murasaki matures.
You're absolutely right. But we'll delve into that more as we continue exploring their story.
Okay, so we've got Genji, the charming but flawed protagonist, a cast of fascinating women, a world steeped in beauty and tradition, and a whole lot of emotional complexity. Where do we go from here?
Well, from here, we see Genji continuing to navigate the complexities of love and life at court. He's still drawn to other women, even as his bond with Murasaki deepens.
It sounds like he's always searching for something just out of reach.
You could say that there's a sense that he's never fully satisfied, that he's always chasing after an idealized image of love that he can never quite grasp.
And this leads him to some pretty risky encounters, right? We were talking earlier about the Lady of the Evening faces.
Ah, yes, her. She's shrouded in mystery. We don't even know her real name. Genji is captivated by her beauty and her elusive nature.
It's interesting how Lady Murasaki uses nature imagery to describe her. She's often associated with the moon, which is so fleeting and ephemeral.
Exactly. She appears and disappears like the moon, leaving Genji with a sense of longing and unfulfilled desire. Their encounters are charged with this awareness of impermanence, this feeling that their connection can't last.
It's like a foreshadowing of the tragedies to come, isn't it?
You could interpret it that way. And then, of course, there's the Lady of the Saffron Flower, another woman who captures Genji's attention.
Tell me about her. What makes her stand out from the other women in Genji's life?
She's known for her elegance and refinement. Her scent, the scent of saffron, becomes a symbol of her allure. But like many of Genji's relationships, this one is also marked by secrecy and forbidden desires.
It seems like Genji thrives on this kind of intrigue. Is it genuine love, or is it more about the thrill of the chase?
That's the question that hangs over many of his relationships. Is he truly capable of deep and lasting love? Or is he driven by something else? A need for validation, a fear of commitment. Lady Murasaki leaves it open to interpretation.
It's fascinating how she presents him as this complex character, both sympathetic and flawed. We can't help but be drawn into his story, even when we question his choices.
Exactly. And it's not just Genji who's complex. All of the women in his life have their own unique personalities, desires, and struggles. They're not just passive objects of his affection. They're fully realized individuals navigating the constraints of Heian society.
Speaking of Heian society, one of the things that really struck me is the importance of aesthetics. It seems like beauty played a huge role in their lives.
Absolutely. Beauty wasn't just about physical appearance. It was about refinement, elegance, artistic talent, and a deep appreciation for nature. Everything from the way people dressed to the poems they composed was imbued with this sense of aesthetic awareness.
And one of the best examples of this is the Grand Flower Feast hosted by the Emperor, right? It's described in such vivid detail.
Yes, that scene is a perfect encapsulation of Heian court culture. The competition between Genji and his rival to know Chujo to create the most beautiful floral arrangements and poems is a fascinating glimpse into their world.
It's not just about the flowers themselves, is it? It's about what they represent: status, power, artistry, and the ability to evoke emotions through beauty.
Precisely. And in this arena, Genji excels. He's the shining one, after all. His talent and charisma are on full display even as he's battling inner turmoil over his complicated love life.
It's almost tragic, isn't it? He has all this outward success, but he's still searching for something more.
That's the paradox of Genji's character. He seems to have everything he could want, yet he's constantly yearning for something just out of reach.
And this yearning leads him back to Murasaki. After all these years of living together, he finally makes her his wife.
It's a significant decision. He elevates her status, but it's a controversial move. She doesn't come from the right political background, and their marriage raises eyebrows at court.
So even in love, social hierarchy plays a huge role.
Absolutely. And Murasaki is keenly aware of her unconventional position. She struggles to find her place to balance her own desires with the expectations placed upon her as Genji's wife.
I imagine it must be incredibly difficult for her. She's grown up under his guidance, but now she has to assert her own identity within this complex relationship.
Exactly. And that's where we see her character really start to develop. She's no longer just a passive recipient of Genji's affections. She has her own thoughts, feelings, and ambitions.
And how does Genji react to this shift in their dynamic?
He's both supportive and threatened. He loves her, but he's also used to being in control. This creates tension and conflict within their marriage, but it also deepens their connection in a way that his other relationships haven't.
It's interesting how their love story mirrors the larger themes of the book. They're both seeking fulfillment, but they're also bound by the constraints of their society.
Right, and just as Genji is trying to find a balance between his desires and his responsibilities, he's confronted with a reminder of his past, Lady Fujitsubo.
The emperor's consort. What happens with her?
She becomes pregnant.
Yeah.
And it's widely rumored that the child is Genji's.
Oh, wow, that's a huge scandal.
It is. And it throws Genji into turmoil. He's torn between his love for Murasaki, his lingering feelings for Fujitsubo, and his fear of the consequences if the truth is revealed.
So even though he's trying to build a life with Murasaki, his past actions come back to haunt him.
Exactly. And this incident highlights another major theme of the book, the consequences of our choices. Genji's actions have far-reaching effects not just on himself, but on those around him.
It's a reminder that we can't escape our past no matter how hard we try.
Precisely. And as Genji grapples with these consequences, he starts to show signs of disillusionment. He's achieved worldly success, but he's also experienced profound loss and heartache.
It's like he's starting to realize that happiness isn't just about getting what you want. It's about something deeper, something more enduring.
Yes. And this realization marks a turning point in his character. He becomes more reflective, more aware of the fleeting nature of life.
It makes you wonder how this newfound awareness will shape his actions going forward. Will he continue down the same path, or will he finally break free from this cycle of desire and disappointment?
That's the question that propels us into the next chapter of Genji's story.
So we left Genji at a crossroads. He's found some stability with Murasaki, but he's also carrying the weight of his past choices and facing this growing sense of disillusionment. Where does his story go from here?
Well, as Genji enters middle age, we start to see a shift in his character. He's no longer that carefree, impulsive youth driven by passion and ambition. There's a new sense of introspection, a longing for something more meaningful than these fleeting romances.
It's interesting how Lady Murasaki portrays this evolution. It's not like a sudden transformation. It's more of a gradual process of growth and self-discovery.
Exactly. Genji's experiences, his loves, his losses, his triumphs and failures, they've all shaped him. He's starting to understand the impermanence of life, the fragility of beauty, and the importance of genuine connection.
And how does this newfound wisdom affect his relationships with women?
His interactions become more nuanced. He's less focused on romantic conquest and more drawn to mentoring younger women, offering guidance and protection, rather than just seeking to possess them.
It's almost like he's trying to make amends for his past behavior, right? To use his experience and help others avoid those same mistakes.
There's definitely an element of that. But it's not just about redemption. Genji is genuinely drawn to these younger women, but his motivations are more complex than just simple romantic pursuit.
You mentioned that he sees reflections of his lost loves in the women that he encounters. Does this pattern continue in this later part of his life?
It does, but in a more subtle way. For instance, he becomes fascinated by a young woman named Kashiwagi, who reminds him of both Murasaki and Lady Fujitsubo. She embodies their beauty and refinement, but she's also unattainable. She's already engaged to another man.
So the pull of the forbidden, the impossible, it's still there. It seems like Genji can't completely escape this aspect of his nature.
It's a struggle. And this struggle leads to tragedy once again. Kashiwagi, torn between her duty and her feelings for Genji, falls ill and dies.
Another heartbreaking loss. It makes you wonder if Genji is destined to just repeat these same patterns, to experience love only in its fleeting and tragic forms.
It's a question that hangs over this part of the story. But Kashiwagi's death does have a profound impact on Genji. He's forced to confront the consequences of his actions and the destructive nature of his desires.
It's a powerful reminder that even with good intentions, our actions can have unintended and devastating consequences.
Absolutely. And this realization deepens Genji's sense of disillusionment. He withdraws further from the world, seeking solace in his relationship with Murasaki.
Their bond has been tested time and time again. It's amazing that they've managed to maintain such a strong connection.
It speaks to the depth of their love and the mutual respect they've cultivated over the years. But even in their shared grief, there's a sense of fragility.
Because Genji is still haunted by his past.
Yes, and because Murasaki is keenly aware of her own mortality, she's always been somewhat melancholic, and her health begins to decline.
It's like a shadow hanging over their happiness. They found a measure of peace, but it feels precarious.
Exactly. And then we're introduced to Ukifune, another young woman who enters Genji's life. She's beautiful and talented, but also vulnerable and easily swayed.
It sounds like she represents another opportunity for Genji to be a mentor, a protector. But will he fall back into those old patterns?
That's the question that drives her story. Genji's drawn to her. Seeing in her a reflection of the women he's loved and lost, he wants to guide her, to protect her from the harsh realities of court life.
But can he really change his nature? Can he truly put her needs before his own desires?
It's a struggle, and ultimately Yukifune's story ends in tragedy. Overwhelmed by the complexities of her situation, she disappears, leaving Genji heartbroken and filled with regret.
It's a stark reminder that even with the best intentions, we can't control the destinies of others. And sometimes our attempts to help can have unintended and devastating consequences.
Precisely. And Yukifune's disappearance marks a turning point for Genji. It reinforces his growing sense of disillusionment, his awareness of the limitations of human agency, and the inevitability of loss.
So, as the tale of Genji draws to a close, we see him facing his own mortality, grappling with the weight of his past, and seeking meaning in a world that feels increasingly transient.
Yes. He withdraws further from the world, focusing on his spiritual development and the well-being of his children. He's accepted the impermanence of life and the futility of chasing after an idealized past.
It's a bittersweet ending, isn't it? He's found a measure of peace, but it's tinged with sadness and regret.
It is. The tale of Genji doesn't offer a neat resolution or a simple moral message. It leaves us with a sense of ambiguity, inviting us to reflect on the complexities of Genji's life, his journey of growth, and the enduring questions he grapples with.
So what does this all mean for us, the readers who are encountering his story centuries later?
I think the tale of Genji offers us a timeless reflection on the human condition. It explores themes that are still relevant today: love, loss, ambition, the search for meaning, the consequences of our choices, and the challenge of finding happiness in a world that's constantly changing.
It's a story that stays with you long after you finish reading it. It makes you think about your own life, your own relationships, and the legacy you want to leave behind.
And it reminds us that even in a world that's often chaotic and unpredictable, there's beauty to be found in the connections we forge with others and the wisdom we gain through our experiences, both joyful and sorrowful.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And I think it captures the essence of what makes the tale of Genji such a powerful and enduring work of literature. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the tale of Genji. We hope you've enjoyed exploring this fascinating and complex world with us. And until next time, on Books and Bytes, happy reading.